Hey there, everyone, and welcome to Raising Indiana, a podcast devoted to the joys and pains of puppyhood. Here we'll cover everything from training to nutrition to care and psychology. This week we're broadcasting from San Antonio, Texas, and awfully have to have with us Dr. Temple Grandin, a best-selling author and teacher who has devoted her life to making the world a better place for animals. Welcome to our show, Dr. Grandin. Now, your book, Animals Make Us Human, is the culmination of 30 years of research. Tell us about it.
Well, in that book, I talk about many different species, dogs, cats, cattle, pigs, and one of the first things that we talk about are the core emotional systems. You know, some people think, oh, animals don't really have emotions. Well, Jack Panskamp, years ago, has written in many neuroscience articles that animals have fear, they have separation distress, he calls it panic, that's separate from fear. Rage, and also the urge to seek things, to seek novelty. If an animal just had negative emotions, it would just sit in the corner and not do anything. And these core emotional systems drive behavior, and that's right in the first chapter. And then we have a chapter for each different species, a lot of tips on just how to take care of them and understand their behavior.
That's right, and one of those chapters, A Dog's Life, in it you write that dogs need parents, not alphas or pack leaders. What's the difference?
Well, some people, when they do the alpha thing, they get into all the rough stuff. But even in wolf packs, if the alpha leader's too nasty, there's been situations where where the other wolves have killed them. They don't like a mean dictator for a leader, but dogs need to have guidance. One of the big problems we have with dogs today is getting enough socialization. Here in Fort Texas, we have draconian leash laws, and you have to keep your dog on a leash unless you're with it. Even when you're with it, you still have to keep it on a leash. So to get a dog socialized with other dogs, you got to go out to the dog park and spend time with it. And it's also very important to get dogs socialized to toddlers, because that little person is a different picture than a big person. And if dogs aren't socialized to toddlers, that could be really dangerous.
Dr. Grandin, you write that because of your autism that you see in terms of senses similar to animals, how can the non-autistic community better communicate with our companion animals, since we see in terms of concepts and words?
Well, you have to try to get away from words. And the only advantage that being autistic did for me is I'm an extreme visual thinker. And, thinking is a continuum. There's a lot of normal people that are good visual thinkers. But in animals' world, it's sensory-based. You want to try to get away from verbal language. Then you're going to understand your animal better. It's a world of pictures, a world of sounds, a world of smell. Think about what the dog learns when he checks out the local tree. He knows who's been there, how long ago they were there, are they friend or foe. Going down and checking out all the pea mail on a local tree, that's like going to the coffee shop and getting all the gossip.
We have a question from one of our audience members. Do you find the nonverbal communication you develop from working with animals helps you communicate better with people?
Well, you have to learn, people have some very, very subtle signs. Animal postures and things are much more easier to read. But, people have to be taught to read them. That's one of the things I really emphasize when I do my talks to veterinary school. I want you to be observant. Like in cattle, for example, if you see the whites of their eyes, they're getting scared. The dog has got its tail between its legs, it's scared. If the whole butt's wiggling, then it's happy. It's much more kind of overt. But people still have to really look. I went to one of Patricia McConnell's talks, and she talked about that when you put your arm up over the shoulders of a dog, dogs don't really like that because in dog language that's dominance. Well, if you look at pictures on the internet, kids hugging dogs right across the shoulder, the dog's mouth will all be closed. They're tolerating, but you don't get that nice, relaxed, open mouth that you get when you're, stroking them somewhere else. He tolerates you going against the natural, instinctual behavior patterns, but they don't really like it. You just look at those pictures. Now, if they hold the dog around the waist further back, then the mouth may be open, because fixed action patterns tend to be quite specific.
Speaking of Patricia McConnell, She's going to be a guest here on Raising in Indiana in a few weeks, and it seems like you really respect her work.
I like her work very much. She's got a fabulous book on animal emotions with great pictures in there that people can look at. And in my book, Animals Make Us Human, you're going to learn the science behind the animal emotional systems. And the thing that's really weird is that all this research that's been done on animal emotions has been there for years, but it's in the neuroscience literature. And very little of that literature has gotten into the veterinary literature and the animal science literature. Because you still have got people in veterinary medicine that say that animals don't have emotions. I got an email last month where a veterinarian said that, and it's just ridiculous. Now, I don't think they have human emotions. We have a big cortex, which is going to make our emotions much more complicated. The basic things like fear, novelty-seeking, separation distress, play, mother-young nurturing behavior, those kind of emotional systems are the same.
Dr. Grandin, any last thoughts or ideas for our audience out there on how to make their puppy's life the best life possible?
I can't emphasize enough the importance of socialization. You need to get puppies socialized, you need to get dogs socialized with toddlers, because that little person is a different creature than the big person. You need to get dogs socialized to other dogs, and you need to have that socialization time off leash, because the dog's brain sets up categories. When I'm on the leash, I protect my owner, and when I'm off the leash, I can go play with others. But now with all the strict leash laws we have, we've got to really work hard to socialize puppies. Well, when I was a child, the dogs ran loose and they socialized themselves. We had no behavior problems, but we did have car accidents. That's the trade-off. But the behavior of the dogs, they were happy dogs, and they're well socialized, and dog fights were non-issue. Now, we also didn't have people deliberately breeding dogs to be aggressive either.
Dr. Grandin, thank you on behalf of all of our listeners for devoting your life to animal advocacy and welfare. It's truly an honor and a privilege to have you on our show. That's all the time we have this week. Thanks to our audience, supporters, volunteers, friends, and fellow animal lovers. From Hudson, Indy, and me, keep the faith and puppy up. And folks, support your local animal shelter or rescue and learn more about canine cancer at 2milliondogs.org.